Before we get into consequences, it's worth understanding just how significant this problem has become. These aren't estimates from a decade ago. This is what the data looks like right now. The average annual cost of insider-related incidents reached $17.4 million per organization in 2024. According to the Dtex and Ponemon Institute Cost of Insider Risk Global Report. That's double what it used to be just a few years earlier. 83% of organizations reported experiencing at least one insider attack in the past year, according to the 2024 Insider Threat Report by Cybersecurity Insiders. Nearly half of those said incidents had become more frequent. Verizon's Data Breach Investigations report found the human element present in the majority of breaches, whether through error, misuse, or compromised credentials. Individual insider incidents averaged $676,517 in total costs, and take an average of 81 days to contain. The longer it takes to detect, the more expensive it gets. Malicious insider incidents cost roughly 3 times more than negligent ones, but negligent incidents are far more common. 62% of insider incidents are attributed to negligence or compromised users, compared to just 16% of deliberate malicious action. That last point is worth sitting with. The majority of insider incidents aren't caused by people trying to do damage. They're caused by people making mistakes, being deceived, or simply not following the right procedures. Which means awareness training, exactly what you're doing right now, is one of the highest value things an organization can invest in. The 2026 Verizon Data Breach Investigations Report, one of the most comprehensive annual studies of real-world breaches, backs this up with some confronting specifics around what actually drives insider incidents when they do happen. Errors alone accounted for nearly 9% of breaches in 2026 DBIR, actually more than deliberate insider misuse, which sat at under 4%. Mistakes by insiders are a bigger problem than malicious insiders. Of intentional insider misuse breaches, convenience was the number one motive at 60%, ahead of financial gain 33%, espionage 4%, and grudge 4%. The DBIR specifically calls out emailing work data to a personal account as the defining example of convenience-driven breach. Not malicious, just careless. The most common misuse actors are ordinary end users, 54% of cases, not rogue admins. However, when developers and system administrators are involved, the impact is typically far greater due to their elevated access. We've already looked at 4 real-world insider incidents in this training. Let's briefly consider what the actual consequences look like across each one. The Maruchi Shire sewage attack caused 800,000 litres of raw sewage to spill into public waterways and parkland. Marine life died, residents and tourists were driven away, and the cleanup bill was significant. The perpetrator was jailed, but the broader damage to the community continued long after his arrest. The logic bomb engineer, the software developer who embedded a malicious script designed to wipe the entire user database, was caught before the script triggered. Had it executed, every employee in the organization would have lost access to every system simultaneously. The investigation alone consumed substantial time and resources across cybersecurity, HR, legal, and executive teams. The network specialists who spent 40 days systematically exfiltrating data caused direct loss of sensitive organizational information. The 81-day average containment timeline is instructive here. Detecting and responding to this kind of patient, methodical insider takes time, and that time has a cost. The Arup deepfake case, a single finance employee transferring funds in good faith, resulted in 25 million lost. No malicious insider was involved. An external attacker used AI to turn a well-intentioned employee into an unintentional insider. The common thread? In every case, the consequences extended well beyond the initial incident. Investigations, legal proceedings, operational disruption, reputational damage, and in some cases, criminal prosecution. These are ripple effects that follow every insider incident, deliberate or not. For the person at the center of an insider incident, the consequences can be life-altering, whether they acted deliberately or accidentally. Immediate termination, often with cause, which affects references and future employment prospects. Criminal investigation and potential prosecution, even for unintentional incidents in some jurisdictions depending on the nature and severity of the harm. Civil liability. Individuals can be personally sued for damages in addition to any criminal proceedings. Fines, restitution orders, and financial penalties that can follow someone for years. For malicious insiders, prison time. The DTEX cases we reviewed involved individuals facing serious charges, and the Marucci case resulted in a 2-year jail sentence. Permanent damage to professional reputations. In a connected world, a serious security incident is difficult to leave behind. It's also worth noting that the consequences aren't always reserved for the person who acted. Colleagues who saw something and said nothing, managers who missed the warning signs, organizations that didn't have the right controls in place. Everyone in the chain can face scrutiny. The ripple effects on an organization after a significant insider incident can be extensive and long-lasting. Immediate financial losses. The 25 million Arup loss is an extreme example, but even a mid-range incident averaging $676,517 is a serious blow for most organizations. Investigation and containment costs. Forensic analysis, legal counsel, IT remediation, on top of the direct loss. Regulatory fines and penalties. In 2024, GDPR violations involving insider threats resulted in $1.2 billion in fines globally. Reputational damage, loss of client trust, negative media coverage, and long-term brand harm that's difficult to quantify and harder to recover from. Operational disruption, systems are taken offline, staff redeployed to manage the incident, projects delayed. Loss of contracts and business relationships, particularly where clients entrust sensitive data to the organization. Staff morale and cultural impact. An insider incident creates a climate of suspicion that can affect the whole workforce. In serious cases, the organization may never recover. Some businesses close entirely in the aftermath of a major insider incident. Some insider incidents extend well beyond the walls of the organization and cause harm to the broader public. The cases we've covered in this training illustrate this directly. Environmental harm. The Marucci Shire sewage attack polluted waterways, killed marine life, and made surrounding areas uninhabitable for residents and visitors. Public infrastructure risks. Attacks on SCADA and operational technology systems don't just affect the organizations. They affect the services communities depend on. Financial system integrity. The Arup deepfake case and similar attacks erode confidence in financial processes and verification systems that businesses and individuals rely on. National security. The DPRK IT worker scheme we've covered in Module 4 isn't just a corporate risk. It's a state-sponsored operation funding weapons programs, with the proceeds of each successful infiltration potentially contributing to that effort. This is why the CISC frames insider threats as a critical infrastructure risk, not just a HR or IT problem. The consequences of getting it wrong can extend far beyond any single organization. Here's something that might surprise you. The statistics we've shared almost certainly understate the true scale of the problem. Insider incidents are chronically underreported, and the 2024 research backs this up. Organizations that do experience incidents frequently choose to handle them internally, for a range of understandable reasons. The cost and complexity of prosecution, especially where evidence is ambiguous, concerns about reputational damage if the incident becomes public, fear of regulatory scrutiny being triggered by disclosure, uncertainty about liability, particularly in unintentional incidents, a preference for resolving things quietly, especially when a person involved is a long-term employee. The practical takeaway is this. The insider threat landscape is more active than the reported numbers suggest. The cost is significant and rising, and no organization, regardless of size or sector, is immune. Understanding that this is the first step. Knowing about what to do about it is what the next 2 modules are for. The 2026 DBIR makes an important point worth flagging here. Insider breaches are particularly hard to catch in real time precisely because insiders are using access that was legitimately granted to them. The question isn't whether they have the right to be in the system. They do. The question is whether they're doing something with that access that they shouldn't be. That's a much harder thing to detect, and it's why behavioral monitoring and offboarding processes matter as much as technical controls.